We're going to jump right into it. I want to show you a quick TikTok video that is going viral, and it has to do with what we're going to be talking about today, which is there have been some changes in the some of the policy issues surrounding like when a guest can cancel and what they can do, maybe some ways to get around paying for some things. And we want to expose those issues, maybe debunk a couple of them, and just overall explain what these new changes are going to entail. So let me flip over to our screen here and let's watch this together and we can react to it.
Yes, I just checked into this place and it is terrible, and I'd like a full refund and an upgraded accommodation, please.
Hi, yes, according to our new policy, you just need to provide evidence of a disruption in your stay, and if things are not as they are supposed to be, we can help you with that.
Okay, well, what do you need me to show you?
Well, if the house is not clean, or if there are any types of pests inside the house, or even if the pool or hot tub are not functioning up to your expectations, that should do it. Literally anything, to be honest.
Well, for starters, when I arrived, I noticed that the house was very dirty. There was dirt and mulch all over the floors.
Oh my God, unlivable conditions.
Then I went into my bedroom to take a little siesta, and you will never believe what I found.
What?
There was a rabid iguana near my bed. They seem to live inside this house, and they are horrible.
What else?
I went to take a dip in the pool to cool off my anger and frustration and realized it was disgusting, covered in leaves, and hadn't been cleaned in weeks.
Well, sir, according to our new policy, we will certainly force a refund from your host who didn't put a ton of money and time into this investment to rent out to people like you. And not only that, I'm looking on Airbnb and it appears that there are only a few options to move into. We will have a villa on a private island that is about $5,000 per night.
Whoa, I can't afford that.
Oh, that's okay. Don't sweat it. According to this new policy, we can actually force the host to pay for it. Yeah, screw these hosts. Well, sir, it looks like you are all set. Thanks for using Airbnb.
All right, so that is quite ironic given the little story we just talked about iguanas. Maybe we want that guy to come and stay at that house. I don't know, the one that roasts iguanas.
Because he would appreciate it.
Yeah, it's almost like an amenity for him.
Yeah, it's the mini bar.
We don't charge for the mini bar. Just eat all the iguanas you want. Yes.
Oh dear.
I don't think that would be a common thing that people would have to deal with, but you just never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
What we're gonna do is just kind of, I've kind of glanced through this a little bit. I know Koi's glanced through it, but we're going to go through it with everybody and just see if we can interpret kind of what is being said here and how it's actually going to affect us, because, it all is going to come down to, actually making sure that what it's saying is the truth and it's not being misconstrued in some way. Because what ultimately is the case is Airbnb is going to make the final decision on it, and you are going to have to, show proof of these things like this. And so it is kind of important to make sure that you have some practices, some good practices in mind, moving forward, just in case you do get somebody who goes and grabs some dirt or throws some leaves in the pool, or like gets pets, or like I don't know, like a lizard or like roaches or something from outside and throws them in the room or something. Like, yeah, that's not going to work. So we've got some, we've got some things to talk about there. And I really think that for the most part, this is all the same, stuff that's always been there. There's some minor tweaks.
Yeah, why don't we jump into it? So we actually have the booking, the refund policy right here. Mm-hmm. And we have what it used to be, and then we have what it is now. So why don't we start with what it used to be? And let me just kind of break down, generally speaking, what the guest refund policy is for Airbnb as of December 15th, 2019. And that is going to officially change April the 29th of 2022. So that's coming up. We got a little over a week left. And so it's good to get ahead of these things and put some procedures and policies in place. That way you're not exposed, but also you can maybe change some of your lingo in your listing to make sure that it covers these items. And the worst thing you can do is give any guest a reason to complain or the avenue to complain. If you cut it off at the past, then they have nothing to complain about. So let's jump in here real quick. Travel issues. This is what this is in regards to. So travel issues is one of the following. It is being deceitful or incorrect or inaccurate on the size of your accommodation, number of rooms, bathrooms, how many kitchens or living rooms it has, they can definitely call you on that as of December 2019. So that's just what it is. Whether
fix too.
Just do what?
Yeah, I said this is an easy fix. Don't lie.
Yes, it all comes down to make sure that you are consistent and what you list in your listing is appropriate. This is one of the big changes, so we'll hammer on this a little bit. A guest refund policy, they have up to 24 hours after they check in to report a travel issue, and it's at our discretion, and our is Airbnb, to either reimburse the guest the amount that was paid through the platform to all the fees, or to use our reasonable efforts to help you find and book an any unused nights. So if you only stay for part of the stay, then they can help find another accommodation for you that's comparable.
This is the old rules. This is the rules that have been in place since, well, apparently 2019. So right.
Airbnb shall decide whether an issue is, if it actually qualifies as a guest issue. That's key. Airbnb shall decide whether an issue reported by a guest qualifies as a travel issue and whether to reimburse or rebook a guest. So if you do it more than 24 hours after that, then at Airbnb's discretion, they can either reimburse you up to the total fees, depending on the nature of the travel issue. So they get to make a decision. Fortunately, in the past, it's been at their discretion. It's something that they can decide. Yes, this is worthy of reimbursing you everything, or partial, or rebooking you, or whatever. And it's all binding and final.
It's just a matter of being able to show the paper trail, so keep your receipts, keep your list of improvements, and just have all of that handy in the case in the event that anything ever does happen.
Yep.
You need to be able to refute that.
Well, let's look. So the key things are: you have 24 hours to get full credit. If you don't, and this goes to say, if you have a week-long stay and you check in, you have 24 hours to determine if there's a bunch of rabid iguanas living in the house. And if you stay more than 24 hours, then after 24 hours, you get less back, but you still have some right to be able to tell them that they have a crappy Airbnb or whatever. So that's one of the main things, 24 hours. The other one is, let's see, what is it? The other big change is some of the definitions of travel issues. Mm-hmm. So let's jump back up, because there's two changes for the 24 hours, which now is other travel issues must be reported to us no later than 72 hours after discovery. So it's no longer 24 hours after check-in. It's 24 hours after, or 72 hours after discovery. So you can stay for 3 or 4 days, and if you have a week-long stay, you stay for 3 or 4 days. You discover it on the 5th day or 4th day or whatever, and then you have a subsequent 3 days to tell Airbnb about it and potentially reimburse yourself or get your money back from the stay. How do you respond to that, Evan? How does that sit with you?
Yeah, I mean, that to me was kind of scary whenever I first heard that. I was thinking, my gosh, people are gonna absolutely take advantage of this, and they're gonna lie. They're gonna try to go and grab some dirt or an iguana or whatever and go and create some travel issues, quote unquote. And just at face value, I thought, if that is really the case, then we're in trouble. And so I was just, I'm the kind of guy who, whenever there's a problem and I have questions, I'm going to go straight to the source. And so I went ahead and I just called Airbnb directly, and I talked to one of their, Superhost support people or whatever. And they kind of helped me. At first, I got a hold of a guy who was reading off the old rules. And then I went and checked. And I was like, oh, maybe he didn't realize that the new rules were going to be updating. And that's kind of what I was talking about. But anyway, so I ended up calling back a second time. And this lady was much more helpful. She was going over the new rules with me instead of the old ones. And basically, she said, that's right. This is what the case is, except for the big difference is you're not going to have to worry about it being people being able to lie about it, because we're going to require evidence, and they're going to know if it's fabricated. You can't just go and grab dirt and throw it in the bed and say that was there before you arrived. You could, but there's no way to actually really prove that. They can send pictures, and then the host can refute that, say, no, my cleaning service cleaned and reset the sheets, and we have proof because I paid them, and everything smells clean. Everything was reset and taken care of, and here's my laundry bill, and they're going to have to go and prove that. So it's
Right.
all come down to, who's got enough proof, who has the paper trail, and Airbnb is not going to just roll over and force you to pay something that is unjust.
Why would they do something that completely or not inadvertently, but actually destroys the hosts or sets them up for failure? When that wrecks the only thing is some conspiracy theory about they're wanting to unsaturate the market or something silly like that, which that doesn't make any sense either from a business standpoint. So there's no way that Airbnb would shoot themselves in the foot like that. So they're out there to try to make it balanced. And I think what they were trying to do with this new policy update is it's always been in the host's favor to a large degree. And the guests didn't have a whole lot of say. And I'm sure that over the years, the complaints have stacked up. And so they're trying to make it more balanced. But at the same time, there's nuance, and they're trying to put in place safeguards for both the hosts and for the guests. So
here's the reality. That rule has been in place since the beginning. The rule, like, guests have always been able to do this. They've just had 24 hours to do it, and now they have 72 hours. That's really the only difference here.
Well, it's 72 hours after discovery. So that's what's kind of strange to me.
So and if they get there and they're there for 3 days, and then all of a sudden they open up a bedroom that they haven't opened up before, and they just discover an iguana sitting on the bed. Well, then, and then they could wait another 72 hours to report that. It's just going to show up as fishy to me. If I was one of the Airbnb people, I was like, well, why didn't you go into that room before? Why weren't you using it? And, why did it take you 3 days to report this if you knew about it already? That just to me doesn't make any sense. And it's just going to throw up some red flags. So trying to falsify this evidence, it's going to be difficult for guests to falsify the evidence. And especially if you're a smart host and you're protecting yourself, which we'll go into a little bit later.
A travel issue now includes incorrect location, you lied about your amenities, incorrect home type, shared home, whatever. But now it includes things like if you cancel the reservation prior to check-in as a host, if the host fails to provide access to the accommodation. So like if you have a keypad and it's not working and it's 10 o'clock at night and they don't, and you don't answer the phone for your guests who are calling in because maybe your battery died in your little keypad on your door or whatever, if you don't have some way for them to get in, then they can cancel it that way. If you fail to disclose in the listing that somebody else or a pet is now a specific entity that will get you reported for a travel issue if you don't let them know that there's no pet. But I don't know how it doesn't make sense to me. That's one of those things that they probably got to call one time about that and said, oh crap, now we have to tell people not to barbecue people's iguanas. Like now we have to include that in our terms and conditions. Accommodations are not habitable, and this is the big one. This one's subjective, and so this is the one that's going to require evidence of proof. It's going to take photos. There's some specific terms in here, and they are not reasonably clean and sanitary, the accommodations, including bedding and towels. So if your bedding has a stain on it, if your bedding has if there's a hair on it, if your towels have stains on them, if they're worn out, maybe they're frayed really bad on the end, if they contain a safety or health hazard, which again, this is pretty subjective, right? So if there's something that looks like mold underneath your spout because it's wet and maybe you live in the South where it's humid all the time, like something like that could get called out, or it contains pests. There are things that you can be intentional about describing. That way you don't get somebody saying, well, I had no idea there were going to be flies in the RV, and say, well, listen, it's in this thing. When you booked, it said, here's some things to expect. So we do our best to keep them out, but you can't keep every fly out of every house. It's just not possible. So in that situation, and I don't think it's clear in their terms and conditions, Airbnb is going to have to make a judgment call, and it might end up not going in your favor sometimes. I would like to think Airbnb would be for us, but that sort of thing, I can see it going the other way.
I think all of this is in place to, really just protect the guests from, and I'm a guest too sometimes, I will be a guest in May at a place. And if I go to this place and it's going to be in the woods, and it's summertime, I don't care about the bugs and stuff, but like if I go in there and my bed's infested with ants, or there are literally like bed bugs and stuff, or, if something is really, really wrong and it's not supposed to be that way, then, you know, one, if that happened and I was the host, then I would actually do whatever it took to like accommodate those guests. Like, oh, I'm so sorry you have ants in your bed. Let me get somebody over there to take care of it. Like that stuff happens, and you should be able to, you know, fix that problem as a host. And if you don't fix that problem, then the guest needs to have some sort of recourse. And
Yeah.
I mean, and that's fair. I don't see any problem with that. And that's how it's always been. Now the biggest changes are just the 72-hour deal and whatnot. Also, he pointed out in there that Airbnb can force payment for an upgrade, but after speaking with the Airbnb representative, that is not the case. They're not going to force any more money out of you over and above what that guest paid. And so,
Right.
like if a guest ever wins a claim because you had ants or bed bugs or something like that, and it's a big enough reason, and they prove it, and they win their claim, rightfully so, then what happens is Airbnb will just retain, they will reduce your payout by the amount that it costs for them to find another place up to the amount that you received. They're not going to, you can't pay an extra $5,000 to stay on a private island. Like that's
Right.
Airbnb can't force you to do that.
So this is exactly the lingo that disproves that guy's statement. If a host cancels a stay or another travel issue disrupts a stay, the host will either receive no payout or will have their payout reduced by the amount of the refund to their guest. And it's not going to exceed what you what the actual cost of. So if your stay was $500, then it depends on how long they stayed. It depends on what the actual offense was. They're going to make a judgment call based on that, and you're going to lose up to the amount that it cost, which is $500. Which your cut is never $500. Maybe your cut's $350. So you're out $350, and Airbnb loses their fees, but you're not going to have to come up with the money for their fees. Like that's not how this thing works.
Right.
So how does Airbnb safeguard the hosts in this situation? This is not just fully in favor of the guests. They want to safeguard their hosts also. So this is something that's really important to note. There is a resolution center. So they're not just going to, if a claim gets made, they're not just going to push a button and then there goes all your money. They're going to they have to notify the host. A guest has to notify you as the host before they are going to get paid out anything. Guests can get refunds. This is right here. If you're wondering where I'm getting this from, this is in this section. So guests can get refunds directly from the host using the resolution center. So if you can come to an agreement with your guests via refunding of a certain amount, which by the way, made this mistake before, all reimbursement information needs to be discussed in your chat thread,
in the platform, in the
messages
platform. Mm-hmm.
Do not do it based on a text message
or phone call.
Do it on a phone call.
Even a recorded phone call.
It's not going to work in your favor. Mm-hmm. Only do it on the message board. So that way Airbnb has instant access to it. Say, this is the conversation. They said this will result, I'm going to give you back $250 of your $500 stay. And that's going to, is that going to take care of the issues and you're comfortable staying there, assuming I get it cleaned up or whatever? Yes or no? If they say yes, then move forward, give them the refund. That's it. They have to communicate with you. They can't just go on and say, Airbnb, we have these issues. Airbnb is going to say, have you talked to the host? And they're going to say, no, I haven't. Okay, well, go ahead and notify the host and see if you can resolve it there. If they can't, then you go back. So you have the opportunity as a host to kind of be an intermediary there between all of it and try to get it solved before it gets out of hand.
Yeah, it's not the first step is always going to be for the guest to go through the resolution center, and honestly, like Airbnb can't do anything, period, until there's been a claim started, and you get notified and you see all their proof, like they're going to take pictures or whatever and they'll post it, and then you'll be able to dispute any of those claims by going through the resolution center, showing your own pictures, showing receipts, and basically just making sure that the burden of proof, like the accuser is, has to show the burden of proof and everything, and it has to be legit. And then in your defense, you're going to have to be proactive to make sure that you are, being a good host and like taking care of your property. If a guest tells you about some mold underneath your sink, that's something that you're probably not going to check all the time. Well, I mean, now that you're made aware of it, you can check that. And you can take some pictures, and there's a really cool app that Koi has started using, and
we'll get to that in just a second.
Well, so you just basically just make sure that your bases are covered whenever it comes down to it, because I'm not ever gonna. I'm a good host. I'm a super host. I'm going to provide the best quality product for my guests, and that's genuine. I'm not just like pulling that out of my hat or anything. Like it is what I'm trying to do. And there's some crooked people out there who don't deserve the kind of protection, because I've read some really just awful stories from some really creepy like live-in hosts and stuff like that. And anyways, there's some weird. Yeah, if you're a male live-in host, don't list yourself in your description as a female. I'm just going to say that.
Probably a good practice. Yeah.
I feel comfortable giving you that advice.
Yeah, that's sound advice. So this is one last thing to note, and then I'm going to tell you about a really cool thing that'll save you time. It'll help you document everything. If you train your super team to be able to utilize this, it's going to save your rear end in the case that anything ever comes up. But I want to say this: travel issues that are caused by the guest, co-travelers, or their invitees or pets are not covered by this policy. Submitting a fraudulent claim violates the terms of service that the guest signs up for and may result in account termination. So there are repercussions for a guest that decides to do this and be fraudulent about it. So that's helpful for me as a host, because I know that there are repercussions if they do something shady, and so that's helpful for me.